Hey everyone, in this part I want to go over how we test our electronics. I have a PS2 here that I just grabbed off of the shelf. It did not come with any wires or controllers. In these two bins down here, we have all of the wires that we need for almost every game system, all the extra controllers. Usually we like to save a third-party controller that's not worth a lot. We save a bunch of games in here. For instance, for the Wii, we have two different games. One to test Guitar Hero guitars, another one to test nunchucks. We have a PlayStation 2 game, we have a regular Xbox game. We have three different Xbox 360 games, one to test Rock Band guitars, one to test the Kinect adapters, one to test everything else, and so on and so forth. We have VHSs in here for VHS players, we have cassettes for cassette players, we have all sorts of AC adapters and AV cables, and pretty much this was accumulated. We didn't buy any of this, we saved it. So we didn't spend much at all money whatsoever accumulating all of this. So when you're starting out, you don't need to expect to have all of this. As you start buying stuff, they'll come with extra cables, or let's say this PlayStation 2 came with cables and it doesn't work. This, we wouldn't sell non-working with the cables. We would save the cables for either for testing or sell those separately. So now that we've hooked this up, we have this set up here. We have a cool AV box here. I recommend getting one of these, or if you see it in a thrift store. This allows us to set up multiple different AVs. One's for like a VCR or any AV connection. One's maybe for our for one of these here, which has the PlayStation connection, the N64 SNES, and this is for a regular Xbox. And then we have another one with all different other types. This TV does have HDMI as well, which you kind of need for a lot of the newer things. We have the controller for it. We have our Wii sensor bar taped up top so it doesn't get lost anywhere. I grabbed this controller from out of there. I set up all the wires. So now we have a great place with a bunch of extra stuff we can test, because we do a lot of video games, so we can test a lot of that, and we can test a lot of other things as well. If something that we get needs a particular type of USB adapter, maybe we have it, maybe we don't. If we can't test something, we basically say we don't have the wire to test this, we put it on a sticky note, and then we place it here. And so once it's here, the person who's sorting this shelf is going to be like, okay, is it worth it to buy a cable for this to test it out to see if it works? Let's say we got it for $2 and a cable costs $5, but it sells, if it works, for $150. I would say that that is worth it to get that cable to test that out. If it sells untested for $100, I would say maybe, you know, let's just sell it, save the time, save the extra money, and sell it untested. But if it doesn't sell at all untested or broken or for parts, or if it sells for maybe $30 or $40 for parts, but if it works, it's $150 and it looks in great cosmetic condition, then we would do that. So at the end of the day, it's really a judgment call when you're dealing with a lot of this stuff. Like, this didn't come in any wires, right? Is it worth it to purchase the wires for this? Let's say the wires cost $15, but it'll add another $30 of value because we can sell it on Amazon. Or we can sell it directly, just the console only, on eBay and say that it works. So you really got to balance that out. Do you want to spend a little extra money and wait a little more time for these things to come in the mail? And also, that's why we save a lot of stuff. Sometimes we have bins of wires left over from other things that didn't work, and we save it. We could pair it up with this and then sell that. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And when you're doing electronics for an extended period of time and you plan on doing, you pick all the stuff up and you're purchasing it from garage sales and picking everything up, then it is worth it to kind of make a whole station, save the wires and everything. But if it's just a one or two time thing, or you're just starting and you don't have space for it, or you don't have the extra money, I recommend just doing it as you get it and selling it directly on eBay, either for parts or buying the cables for it and then shipping it directly to Amazon. But this is just to show you guys how we do it, how we set it up. We have all sorts of other cleaning supplies, rubber bands, and everything you can need. But even with all this stuff, there's a lot of things we just don't have the wires for, and we do have to place it on the shelf, and then we have to make a judgment call of for where it goes and what to do with it. So I hope this part was useful. And in the next part, we're going to talk about this shelf here and how this is organized and all the notes. I did cover a little bit and what we do with things that don't necessarily we can't test. Oh, on the last note with that, there may be a board game that we get all the time. For instance, there's one board game called Pretty Pretty Princess. And we get that game a lot. And it is worth a lot. It's worth like $50. But every single time, it's always missing something. Because it has these earrings, it has these necklaces, and it's always missing an earring or a necklace. So we save them, and we get 1 or 2 or 3 every month when we go to the thrift stores and garage sales. So we save them. And then when we get them, now there's 2 incomplete, and we make 1 complete one, and then we save the rest of those parts, and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, this is, so this right now is, we have a bunch of them right now, and believe it or not, out of all these 3, we still can't complete one. So, but I guarantee you if we get another one, and it's missing something, we have the spare parts for it. So I don't recommend saving every board game, because I've done that too, and that is just, yeah, at the end of a year, I had probably 300 board games that it just got overwhelming. If you have the space for it, it's actually not a bad idea because you know, you'll have those spare parts. But when we buy board games, we buy expensive board games, $30, $40 and up. So most likely those parts sell on eBay. So for instance, Pretty Pretty Princess, if you go over to eBay and type in Pretty Pretty Princess replacement parts or just parts, I can guarantee you there's going to be sold listings for pieces from this game. And that's for this game, and it's for many other games, all sorts of different, like there's a lot of the Monopoly games that come with those pewter pieces. If the game's incomplete, you could sell, we just sold last week a set of the pewter pieces from one of the Stars Monopolies for like $12. So, okay, you know what, it's not a huge amount of money, but when we bought it for $2.99 and it's incomplete, we don't just have to throw it out. We actually still made money on that just by selling the parts. So a lot of times, if you're disciplined in buying just good quality board games like Pretty Pretty Princess and other $40, $50, $60, $100 board games, the parts sell for money. So it's really a win-win, and you don't have to sit in the thrift store and count the board games. Otherwise, you'll be there all day. So in the beginning, though, I absolutely recommend you do that, or at least glance inside. There have been some surprising things we have found inside some board games, for sure. Some things that were great, and some things that were absolutely nasty, and some things that were completely ridiculous. Like, for instance, I think I opened up a board game once, and it was just a bunch of playing cards. I'm like, oh, it had weight to it. It was worth $50. I opened it up, and I had a bunch of playing cards in it. So I do recommend glancing inside the board games before you buy them. And when you're first starting, or if you have limited capital, I do actually recommend, if you have time and not the money, to count them in the store. If you don't have the time but you have the money, I recommend just buying it and then going from there. So I hope this part was helpful. And in the next part, I want to go over the shelf, and then I want to recap just real quick on all sorts of other things on the shelf as well.